Despite what you may think, even presidents need to eat. Here are some favorite foods of United States presidents throughout history, showing us how much America's culinary style has changed, starting off with one of the most iconic presidents in the entire list. George Washington, the nation's first president, began each morning the same way. Calm, punctual, and with a hearty serving of cornmeal pancakes known as hoe cakes, drenched in honey and served piping hot. They were Washington's favorite comfort food, reflecting his Virginia roots and simple tastes. Though his formal dinners featured lavish spreads of pork, goose, and mince pies, it was those rustic pancakes that truly satisfied him. John Adams preferred his food the same way he preferred his politics: honest, local, and straightforward. He often enjoyed what was called a New England boiled dinner, a hearty mix of salted meats, potatoes, and vegetables simmered to perfection. Sourced mostly from Massachusetts farms, this dish spoke to Adams's patriotism long before menus became statements of identity. For him, food wasn't ceremony, it was sustenance. Thomas Jefferson's sophisticated palate was years ahead of his time. While others dined on hearty meats, Jefferson delighted in French cuisine, particularly vanilla ice cream. Introduced to it during his diplomatic years in France, Jefferson brought the recipe home, helping popularize the frozen dessert in America. Though small in stature, James Madison possessed an appetite fit for a Virginian. His favorite dish was smoked Virginia ham, salty, savory, and perfectly cured. It was a meal that reflected his state's culinary pride, long before the refrigeration turned regional delicacies into national staples. Madison's table often featured the finest hams available, glazed and served alongside corn pudding or greens. A man of quiet dignity, James Monroe found joy in a humble Southern dish known as spoon bread. Originating from cornmeal mush accidentally baked in an oven, spoon bread combined the heartiness of cornbread with the soft comfort of a pudding. Monroe, ever the Virginian, adored it. The story goes that the first time it was served at his home, he declared it a permanent addition to his table. John Quincy Adams was perhaps America's healthiest president. A passionate gardener, he preferred the fruits of his own labor, quite literally. His favorite foods were the plums, peaches, and apples he cultivated himself. Adams believed in self-sufficiency and moderation, and his diet reflected it. Instead of feasting on grand spreads, he found satisfaction in the purity of fresh produce. Andrew Jackson's reputation was fierce, but his taste leaned refined. He was especially fond of tenderloin with Jezebel sauce, a Southern concoction blending apple, pineapple, and horseradish. The dish balanced sweet and spicy, much like Jackson himself, bold but deliberate. Jezebel sauce was unconventional, even eccentric for its time, but Jackson's fondness for it mirrored his defiance of convention. Martin van Buren's taste reflected his Dutch heritage. He was particularly fond of boar's head, a dish as grand as it sounds, often roasted whole and served as the centerpiece of festive gatherings. Van Buren developed the fondness during a trip to England and made it a recurring feature of his holiday feasts. Though unusual by modern standards, such fare symbolized wealth and celebration in his era. William Henry Harrison, though president for just a month, left behind one surprising culinary legacy: squirrel stew. In the 1800s, the dish was common on American tables, lean, protein-packed, and deeply flavorful. John Tyler had a weakness for chess pie, a rich Southern dessert made from sugar, butter, and eggs, often mistaken for pudding. Sweet, aromatic, and golden, it became his go-to indulgence during the long hours of governing. James K. Polk governed with intensity and ate with equal precision. His favorite combination, ham and cornbread, was plain, hearty, and deeply Southern. Zachary Taylor's passion for callus, or fried rice fritters, revealed a sweet side beneath his soldier's grit. These golden treats, crispy outside, tender within, were a New Orleans favorite, and Taylor, a Louisiana native, adored them. Millard Fillmore favored something straight out of English tradition: the resurrection pie. Despite its dramatic name, the dish was a hearty meat pie, often filled with leftover meats, vegetables, and gravy, then baked to perfection. Franklin Pierce's culinary preferences carried the imprint of his New England upbringing. Among his favorites were Fanny Daddies, fried pastries resembling donuts, warm, flaky, and irresistibly sweet. James Buchanan's table featured an unusual but distinctive favorite: sauerkraut. The fermented cabbage dish, rich in flavor and crunch, was a nod to his Pennsylvania Dutch roots. Though today it's often praised for health benefits, Buchanan simply enjoyed its tangy taste and texture. Abraham Lincoln's tastes were as humble as his beginnings. His favorite dish was the corn cake, simple, warm, and endlessly comforting. He often ate them fresh off the griddle, with butter and honey, relishing their rustic sweetness. Andrew Johnson's preferred meal was Hoppin' John, a traditional Southern blend of black-eyed peas, rice, and peppers. Rooted in African and Carolinian cuisine, the dish symbolized prosperity and good fortune. For Ulysses S. Grant, victory was best served with rice pudding. Simple yet satisfying, it became a daily staple during his presidency. Grant was a disciplined eater, often indifferent to elaborate meals, but rice pudding was his exception. Rutherford B. Hayes had an unshakable fondness for corn, prepared any way imaginable. Corn on the cob, cornbread, corn fritters, and even corn soup frequently appeared at his table. James A. Garfield shared a curious connection with earlier presidents. He loved squirrel dishes. In his case, squirrel soup was a favorite, hearty meal. Chester A. Arthur's refined tastes leaned toward the extravagant, and nothing reflected that better than turtle steak. In the late 19th century, sea turtle dishes were considered delicacies for the elite. Grover Cleveland favored corned beef and cabbage, a meal as hearty and no-nonsense as the man himself. He once traded a gourmet White House dinner for a plate of it, calling it the best meal he'd had in months. Benjamin Harrison had a soft spot for fig pudding, a rich dessert steeped in British heritage. Dense, fragrant, and filled with dried fruit, it was a holiday staple at the White House during his presidency. His chef once noted that no Christmas dinner was complete without it. William McKinley's culinary favorite was red flannel hash, a colorful mixture of potatoes, beets, and corned beef. The dish, rustic yet hearty, reflected his Midwestern roots. Its vibrant red hue made it a unique sight on the presidential table. Theodore Roosevelt's appetite was as robust as his personality. Among his favorites, fried chicken stood out, a dish tied to his Southern childhood memories. His mother's recipe featured crisp golden skin and creamy white gravy. William Howard Taft's formidable appetite was legendary, and his favorite indulgence, 12-ounce steaks, was proof. He enjoyed them daily, often paired with potatoes and salad. At over 300 pounds, Taft was the heaviest president in history, and his love for hearty portions was no secret. Woodrow Wilson shared a taste for Virginia ham, much like earlier presidents from the same region. He preferred his sliced thin and fried, often served with eggs or biscuits. The smoky, salty flavor was timeless. Warren G. Harding enjoyed sauerkraut paired with Norst, a German-inspired sausage dish. The tangy, savory combination became a frequent centerpiece at his gatherings. Calvin Coolidge was a man of few words but distinct tastes. His favorite dessert was the jelly roll, a sponge cake filled with strawberry jam and topped with a dusting of sugar or lemon icing. It was a simple treat, but one that brought him joy after long, restrained days in office. Herbert Hoover's favorite dish was as unusual as it was sweet: caramelized tomatoes. Considered a delicacy of the 1920s, they were cooked in butter and sugar until glossy and tender. Hoover adored them, requesting the dish so often that his chef perfected a version tailored to his exact taste. Franklin D. Roosevelt adored the humble grilled cheese sandwich, a comforting meal that reflected his warmth and relatability during turbulent times. Often paired with tomato soup, his grilled cheese was crisp, buttery, and perfectly toasted. Harry S. Truman's tastes were firmly rooted in his Missouri upbringing. His favorite dish was cornbread with sorghum syrup, a combination both rustic and deeply satisfying. Truman preferred the kind of food he'd eaten all his life: hearty, sweet, and simple. Dwight D. Eisenhower was a man who believed in patience, and his food reflected it. His favorite meal was slow-cooked beef stew, simmered for hours with potatoes, carrots, and onions. He often helped prepare it himself, tending to the pot with military precision. John F. Kennedy's refined palate reflected his New England roots and cosmopolitan charm. His favorite meal was New England fish chowder, a creamy, savory blend of potatoes, onions, and fresh fish. Served with crackers and a touch of butter, it was a dish steeped in the maritime tradition of Massachusetts. Lyndon B. Johnson was a Texan through and through, and his favorite food, barbecue, was proof. Whether it was beef brisket or pork ribs, he preferred it smoky, tender, and cooked over open flame. Johnson even brought his personal barbecue pit to the White House lawn for events, proudly sharing Texas-style cooking with dignitaries and staff. Richard Nixon's favorite food might surprise modern audiences: cottage cheese. Light, simple, and high in protein, it was a daily staple for him, often paired with fresh fruit or a drizzle of ketchup. Gerald Ford's Midwestern sensibilities extended to his dinner plate. His favorite meal was pot roast with red cabbage, a classic comfort dish in American households. The slow-braised beef, tender and savory, paired perfectly with the tang of the cabbage. Jimmy Carter's love for peanuts was well known, but his true culinary devotion was cheesy grits. A Southern staple made from ground cornmeal, grits were elevated by Carter's favorite addition, melted cheese. Creamy, rich, and comforting, it was a dish he often prepared himself. Ronald Reagan's most beloved snack was the jelly bean, a symbol so tied to him that jars of them decorated the Oval Office. Reagan began eating them to quit smoking, and the habit never left. His favorite flavor was licorice, but he enjoyed nearly all varieties. George H.W. Bush made no secret of his distaste for broccoli, but he made up for it with a love of pork rinds. Crunchy, salty, and often spiced with Tabasco, they were his go-to snack during long days in the White House. Bill Clinton's favorite dish was chicken enchiladas, a nod to his Southern upbringing and love of bold flavors. During his presidency, he famously struggled with dietary restrictions, but never lost his affection for this comfort food. The combination of spiced chicken, soft tortillas, and melted cheese was his idea of culinary happiness. George W. Bush's favorite indulgence was the cheeseburger pizza, a hybrid creation that combined two American classics into one. The White House kitchen often recreated it for him, complete with ground beef, melted cheese, and pickles atop a crispy crust. Bush's preference spoke to his straightforward, playful nature and his comfort with the familiar. Barack Obama's favorite meal was his homemade chili, a dish he perfected during his college years and continued to make for family dinners. His version combined lean beef, beans, and a blend of spices that gave it warmth and depth. Even as president, he was known to step into the kitchen and cook it himself, reminding everyone that leadership can still savor the flavor of home. Donald Trump's taste for fast food was well documented, and his go-to choice was McDonald's Filet-O-Fish sandwich. He appreciated its consistency and familiarity. No surprises, just the same flavor every time. While the White House offered world-class cuisine, Trump preferred the nostalgic comfort of a fast food meal he'd trusted for years. Joe Biden's fondness for ice cream has become part of his public persona. Vanilla chocolate chip, in particular, holds his loyalty. Whether visiting factories, campaign stops, or hometown shops, Biden never passes up a scoop. The White House freezer reportedly stays stocked with his favorite flavors, sourced from local creameries like Jenny's in Ohio. It seems like our presidents have a lot in common with us when it comes to food. If you enjoyed the video, like the video and subscribe.